Okay, the next film I'm reviewing is A Time Traveler's Wife, a romance film slash chick flick based on a popular novel, and the film stars Rachel McAdams and Eric Bana. This is a very bittersweet love story purposely made to make girls cry, and it may very well work, but I'm hoping if they have any sense at all, they'll find this to be overly tacky despite its ambition and originality. Henry is played very well by Bana, and he is a time traveler who cannot control his trips as he disappears into thin air when we least expect it. Henry is a miserable, downtrodden, alcoholic time traveler who can't get a grip on who he is. Rather than use his power for something that could benefit the world, he just mopes around like a miserable lump. But don't get me wrong, don't take that comment out of context. I had no problem with that aspect of the film, and it's not surprising he feels that way sometimes. And now enter Claire, who we are introduced to as a young girl. She sees this man in the meadow with no clothes, pretty much appear out of thin air, literally, and she helps him cover up with a blanket. This young girl is, of course, instantly enamored with this man and is completely in love by the next time she sees him, which is when she's a grown woman. I understand this film is a fantasy love story, and its premise is supposed to be as far-fetched as it is. But the film does not make me feel much sympathy or likability for these characters as much as it should, despite how the writers of this film try. And they do try, do not get me wrong. The effort is there, the execution is not. Also, when you make a film that's of a fantasy premise and you set it in the real world, you have to make it look that way. The film seems to be just a fantasy that seems as though it's set in an alternate universe, and the very thing that's going on with Henry has no effect on the outside world outside of the two lead characters, and maybe one or two of the supporting ones, but it's done in a very contrived fantasy romance handbook fashion. Now, this may sound contradictory, but the chemistry between McAdams and Bana is there. The two actors are very comfortable with each other, and they do the best they can with the material they were given, but I think of a film like The Lake House, where the premise, again, was a fantasy love story, but worked because of the aspect of the far-fetched time-traveling mailbox, and it was built up in the sense that, hey, it could be possible, but at the same time, it's a time portal mailbox. Let's be realistic here, people. But I think but then again, I'm not saying this movie should have done that, had that aspect, but what I'm trying to basically say is, to sum it all up, is that even the response of the people it surrounds just seemed as basic and plain as any other film. Even the doctor's diagnosis of Henry's disorder that he's been diagnosed with is just, the reaction to it just seems like nothing. Like, there was nothing there. There are just way too many little things that went by in this film. So that's, and all that, plus that, I don't know. Anyway, the little things plus what I just said are one of the reasons why I cannot recommend it. Despite the fact that I was anticipating this film highly due to its original concept, I just found myself shaking my head by the end of it. McAdams, who was great in another love story, of course, The Notebook, as you all know, she has a similar natural charm here, but isn't given the proper material to make it work on that level. Bana is fresh off a great supporting performance in Funny People, and gives the character of Henry the subtle sadness it needs, but again, his performance cannot overcome the movie or the material, so for that I can only give The Time Traveler's Wife 2 stars out of 5. Sorry, girls.